Do you feel like you're not forming lasting connections or feeling emotionally fulfilled despite having many friends? Do you find it hard to settle down or make long-term commitments? If so, you might be experiencing what psychologists call Simon syndrome. Simon syndrome is an interesting concept that delves into a common yet often overlooked challenge faced by many men today. It's a reluctance to commit. But this isn't just a casual hesitation. No, it's a deeply ingrained emotional trait that prevents men from building deep, enduring emotional relationships. In this video, we'll explore what Simon syndrome is, why it's becoming prevalent, and how it can affect a man's life. We'll also look at the signs of this syndrome and discuss ways to overcome it so that you can foster healthier, more meaningful relationships. Ready to dive in? Let's go. A new study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that millennials are waiting longer than previous generations to get married, have children, and even enter into serious romantic relationships. On top of that, more and more people are choosing to remain single. It's no longer uncommon to see 40-year-olds living alone without a partner or even close family ties. On the surface, this trend towards independence seems liberating, allowing individuals to focus on personal growth and self-fulfillment before committing to a relationship. However, a counter-argument suggests that this choice stems from a deep-rooted fear of commitment. As Dr. Margaret Paul puts it, our fear of commitment often masks itself as a search for personal freedom, when in reality, it's an attempt to protect ourselves from the vulnerability inherent in creating something lasting. There's been a growing concern among mental health professionals about a condition known as Peter Pan syndrome, which was first described by Canadian psychologist Dr. David B.C. This syndrome refers to a neurotic condition in which individuals, usually men, display arrested emotional development and struggle to assume the responsibilities associated with adulthood. However, there's another less talked about variation of this syndrome that is subtly different. It's called Simon syndrome. Like Peter Pan syndrome, it's rooted in the idea of avoiding commitment, but it goes beyond that. Simon syndrome affects men who feel threatened by the idea of settling down and taking on the responsibilities that come with it, such as marriage, starting a family, or long-term relationships. In fact, the word Simon acts as an acronym that encapsulates the main features of this psychological pattern. It stands for singleness, reflecting a tendency to avoid emotional commitment and favor short and superficial relationships. I is for immaturity, which translates into an inability to effectively manage one's own emotions and face decisions that involve responsibility. M stands for materialism, indicating a strong orientation toward material things and consumption as the primary form of personal validation. O stands for obsession with success, which is reflected in the constant need for recognition of one's professional or social goals as a way of sustaining self-esteem. And finally, N stands for narcissism, characterized by excessive self-admiration and a lack of consideration for the feelings and needs of others. According to psychiatrist Enrique Rojas, the origin of this syndrome lies in what he calls panic commitment syndrome. He explains that people who exhibit this pattern tend to associate commitment with a threat to their personal freedom, which leads them to avoid stable emotional relationships. Instead, they often find themselves in a cycle of short-lived relationships or situationships that never progress into deeper commitments. Simon syndrome is especially prevalent among young men, generally over 30 years old. This is because it tends to manifest at a stage of life when society and culture expect a consolidation of emotional and professional life. However, many individuals remain anchored in adolescent emotional patterns, avoiding the emotional demands of adult life. As mentioned earlier, the syndrome is not officially recognized in diagnostic manuals such as the DSM-5 or the ICD-11. However, it serves as a useful cultural and interpretive construct to understand the emotional behavior of certain adult males. Rojas believes that these individuals had become fixed at the end of adolescence, displaying behavioral patterns typical of that age group, such as prioritizing immediate gratification, seeking constant excitement, and avoiding long-term planning and stability. According to Rojas, the combination of lack of commitment, emotional immaturity, and narcissism can lead to profound consequences. For example, individuals with Simon traits often seek validation and self-esteem through superficial means, such as accumulating material possessions or seeking fleeting romantic conquests. They may also struggle to develop healthy communication skills and empathy, leading to a breakdown in relationships. Moreover, the constant need for external validation and the inability to connect with others on a deeper level can lead to feelings of loneliness and isolation. Paradoxically, even in the midst of many friendships or casual flings, here are some of the potential consequences of this syndrome. Superficial bonds. Those affected by Simon syndrome often avoid emotional involvement, which leads to relationships focused on fun or immediate pleasure. This dynamic fosters repetitive cycles of brief, meaningless bonds, which in the long term impair the ability to establish authentic and lasting connections. Emotional isolation. The preference for work, consumption, or immediate gratification is often accompanied by a neglect of meaningful relationships. which fosters emotional distancing and persistent feelings of loneliness. Obstacles to emotional development. According to Rojas, commitment implies the ability to give yourself solidly to someone. Without this commitment, men with Simon traits remain anchored in a model of immediate personal satisfaction, which delays access to more complex forms of emotional maturity, linked to empathy, selflessness, or the ability to overcome adversity. Mental health risks. These dynamics can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, or depressive symptoms. Are you seeing these patterns in your life? Don't worry, there's still hope. Recognizing the problem and accepting that the type of connection used until now may be limiting personal development is already a huge step forward. Psychologist Dr. Deborah Kosheba highlights that fostering more profound connections can lead to increased self-esteem, improved mental health, and a greater sense of belonging. So how can you start making these positive changes? Here are some helpful tips. Explore your inner world. Taking the time to honestly observe one's own emotions and behaviors can help you understand the origin of your lack of commitment and work on it. Practicing meditation and mindfulness can also help improve self-awareness. Recognize patterns of behavior. Reviewing past relationships with a critical eye can help identify repetitive behaviors such as avoidance of intimacy, emotional disconnection in relationships focused solely on pleasure. Identifying these cycles is key to making changes in the future. Strengthen your emotional intelligence. Learning to manage emotions. Developing empathy and tolerating discomfort are essential skills for breaking out of the Simon pattern. Reading specialized books, participating in workshops, or individual psychotherapy can provide valuable tools. I seek professional help. A therapist can provide a safe space to explore underlying issues. Develop coping mechanisms and learn healthier relationship dynamics. Be patient with yourself. Overcoming deeply ingrained patterns takes time and effort. Celebrate small victories and be kind to yourself when faced with setbacks. Remember, change is a journey, not a destination. Dr. Enrique Rojas offers a hopeful perspective stating, "Only those who are free are capable of commitment." Therefore, overcoming Simon syndrome involves freeing oneself from the chains of fear and emotional immaturity to embrace a more mature, committed, and fulfilling way of relating to others. And if you want to delve deeper into this topic, check out our video on 9 signs of arrested emotional development. You'll find it right here. Till next time, remember that every step toward emotional growth and maturity brings you closer to forming deeper and more meaningful connections.